The systematic targeting of hospitals, schools, UN facilities, air convoys, and refugees camps are not incidental. These are wanton acts of collective punishment in full world view. Gaza is enduring a full-scale humanitarian catastrophe. For nearly 2 years, it has suffered indiscriminate bombardment, total blockade, and deliberate deprivation and starvation, while violence and dispossession escalate in the West Bank and Jerusalem. Excellencies, the so-called humanitarian system put in place by the occupying power is a cruel illusion. Famine is rampant, civilians are being shot trying to collect food, the hunger crisis in Gaza has reached unprecedented and deeply alarming levels. Against this backdrop, Israel exhibits insensitivity to international norms. In recent days, a slew of highly provocative and unwarranted statements has emerged from Israel, which spotlight its growing disdain and absolute contempt for the international order. The brazen audacity of the so-called Israeli cabinet in unveiling its ominous plan to extend Israel's full military control over Gaza, as well as the Israeli Prime Minister's recent allusion to the creation of a greater Israel, provide an insight into Israel's annexationist and rogue mindset. Excellencies, Pakistan strongly condemns these highly escalatory and portentous statements calling for actions that will further aggravate the prevailing grave humanitarian situation and suffering of the civilians in the occupied Palestinian territory, in addition to undermining international efforts aimed at achieving peace and stability in the region. We joined the statement issued by the Arab Islamic Ministerial Committee, along with other countries, in expressing strong condemnation and categoric rejection of the Israeli announcement, denouncing it as an unacceptable escalation and a brazen attempt to entrench illegal occupation by coercion. Pakistan also fully endorsed and joined the statement issued by 31st Arab Islamic countries, along with the Secretaries General of the OIC, the League of the Arab States, and the Gulf Cooperation Council, condemning the Israel PM's outrageous insinuation to the creation of so-called Greater Israel. His statement constitutes a direct threat to Arab national security, to the sovereignty of states, and to regional and international peace and security. As the Prime Minister of Pakistan has unequivocally stated, the root cause of this ongoing tragedy is Israel's prolonged illegal occupation of Palestinian territory. As long as this occupation endures, peace will remain elusive. Unquote. We fully stand by our brotherly Arab states in safeguarding their sovereignty against threats to their independence and territorial integrity. Pakistan expresses its deep appreciation to all these states and stakeholders that are playing a role in advancing peace in Gaza. Their ongoing contributions and steadfast support remain essential in the pursuit of stability and justice for the Palestinian people. Excellencies, Pakistan also welcomes the growing international momentum in support of Palestinian statehood and full membership of the United Nations. We urge those states that have yet to recognize the state of Palestine to do so as soon as they can. We appreciate the convening of the International Conference on the two-state solution co-chaired by Saudi Arabia and France on 28th of July this year. I personally participated in the conference. It did create a positive momentum, but we need to do more. It must now be followed up by coordinated international action to realize the long overdue settlement based on a viable, sovereign, and contiguous state of Palestine on the basis of pre-1967 borders with Al-Quds al-Sharif as its capital. Excellencies, this is a defining moment for the Muslim Ummah. History will not judge us by our words, but by our actions. The Palestinian people do not seek statements of sympathy. They need concrete measures to end their suffering and secure their liberation from Israeli occupation. The OIC must issue and rise to this challenge with unity, resolve, and purpose. Another Nakba cannot and must not be allowed to happen. The Palestinian question is a litmus test for the credibility of the so-called rules-based order. Failure to uphold the rights of Palestinian people will embolden impunity and undermine the legitimacy of the very order we all claim to defend and uphold. To safeguard the global order and to move beyond the perpetual cycle of violence and destruction in the occupied Palestinian territory, Pakistan reiterates the following 7 urgent and essential steps. First, an immediate, permanent and unconditional ceasefire across Gaza and occupied Palestinian territory with full implementation of the UN Security Council Resolution 2735. Second, unfettered, sustained and secure humanitarian access to all civilians in need and the protection of aid workers, medical teams and the UN personnel. Pakistan has continued to steady dispatch of humanitarian goals for our brothers and sisters in Gaza. Third, renewed and reinforced international support to UNRWA, which remains indispensable to the survival of millions of Palestinians. The OIC fraternity must play a proactive role to this end. Fourth, an end to forced displacement, illegal settlement expansion and annexation of Palestinian land, particularly in the West Bank and East Jerusalem. Israel's declared intent to occupy Gaza City would be a deliberate attempt to obliterate Palestinian existence and heritage. It must be firmly opposed. Fifth, implementation of the Arab and OIC-led reconstruction plan for Gaza, which represents a vital framework for post-conflict recovery and rehabilitation, sustainable development, and the restoration of dignity of the people of Palestine. Sixth, the revival of a genuine and time-bound political process to achieve a just, comprehensive, and lasting two-state solution in accordance with international law and relevant UN and OIC resolutions. And seventh, accountability for war crimes and crimes against humanity. Israel must not be allowed to act with impunity in defiance of the UN Charter, international law, including international humanitarian law, and the binding measures of the International Court of Justice. The OIC must champion mechanisms to ensure justice and end the culture of impunity. Let me also categorically state that any desecration of Al-Aqsa Mosque is an intolerable provocation. The incursions by Israeli officials into Al-Quds al-Sharif are a deliberate assault on Muslim settlements, a blatant violation of international law, and direct challenge to the collective conscience of the Muslim Ummah. The OIC must remain vigilant and united in protecting Islamic and Christian holy sites against all attempts to unilateral alterations. Excellencies, the primary responsibility for ensuring global peace and security lies with the UN Security Council. The Security Council must be to impose a cost on Israel if it defies the demands and the will of the international community. The Council must enact enforcement measures, including the deployment of an international protection force to save the besieged population in Gaza, as was also envisioned by the 20th extraordinary session of the Council Foreign Ministers held in March earlier this year. Palestine is a priority for Pakistan. As a non-permanent member of the UN Security Council, Pakistan will continue to work with the OIC and the Arab partners to mobilize global support for the Palestinian right to self-determination, justice and peace. The OIC must act now with urgency and determination. We cannot remain a bystander. It is imperative to address and tackle the root cause to bring an end to the Israeli illegal occupation of the Palestinian territories. It is time for credible action to reaffirm our shared commitment to a just and lasting peace in the Middle East. I thank you all. Jazakallah khair.
नाज़रीन, नायब वज़ीर आज़म मोहम्मद इसाक डार OIC वज़ीर ख़ारजा काउंसिल के ख़ुसूसी इजलास से खिताब कर रहे थे। उन्होंने कहा कि गज़ा में मासूम फ़लस्तीनियों का खून बहाया जा रहा है। गज़ा में इस वक्त इंसानी बहरान अपने उरूज पर है। इसराइल आलमी कवानीन की खुल्ला खिलाफ वर्जी कर रहा है। फ़लस्तीनियों को इज्तमाई सज़ा दी जा रही है। इसराइल ग्रेटर इसराइल की ख्वाहिश की तकमील में फ़लस्तीनियों को कुचल रहा है। उसका ये तरीक़ाकार ग्लोबल ऑर्डर के लिए ख़तरा साबित हो सकता है। PTV न्यूज़ से फिल वक्त इतना ही।